Now, on a bit more of a serious note, we were trying to determine how you'd describe your brand of humor. How would you describe it?
Funny.
Picture this. Two guys walk into a comedy club in the 1970s and end up changing comedy forever. But what if I told you that one of them almost became a police officer and the other was kicked out of his own band for being too wild? What if I said that behind all those famous stoner jokes, there were incredible stories of struggle, success, and surprising talents that most people never knew about? Today, we're diving deep into the amazing world of Cheech and Chong, the comedy duo that made millions of people laugh while hiding some of the most fascinating secrets in entertainment history. Get ready to have your mind completely blown, because what you're about to learn will change everything you thought you knew about these comedy legends. Let's start with something that will shock you right away. Richard Cheech Marin, the guy who made a career out of playing stone characters, was actually one of the smartest kids in his school. While everyone thinks of him as the wild party guy from movies, Cheech was a serious student who graduated from California State University with a degree in English. But here's the crazy part. He was so good at school that he almost went to law school instead of becoming a comedian. Can you imagine? We might have never gotten up in smoke if Cheech had decided to become a lawyer instead of making people laugh. And speaking of surprises, Tommy Chong's story is even more unbelievable. Before he met Cheech, Tommy wasn't just some random guy who liked to joke around. He was actually a serious musician who played guitar and was part of a band called the Shades. But get this, the band kicked him out because they thought he was too crazy and unpredictable. The same wild energy that got him kicked out of his band is exactly what made him perfect for comedy. Sometimes what looks like a failure is actually preparing you for something much bigger. But here's where their story gets really interesting. When Cheech and Chong first met in the late 1960s, they weren't trying to become famous comedians. They were just two guys who happened to be at the same little theater in Los Angeles. Cheech was there because he was avoiding the Vietnam War draft, and Tommy was there because he was trying to stay out of trouble after some run-ins with the law. Neither of them planned to change comedy forever, but sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them. Their first performance together was almost a complete disaster. They were supposed to do a serious play, but they kept making each other laugh during rehearsals. The director got so frustrated that he almost fired them both. Instead of giving up, they decided to turn their goofiness into something special. They started doing comedy sketches together, and people couldn't stop laughing. What started as a problem became their greatest strength. Now here's something that will really surprise you. Even though everyone knows Cheech and Chong for their stoner comedy, Cheech actually didn't smoke marijuana when they first started performing. While Tommy had been using cannabis for years, Cheech was more focused on the comedy and the acting. He was studying the characters and the timing, treating it like a serious art form. This might sound crazy, but some of the funniest stoner characters in comedy history were created by someone who was completely sober while writing them. The way they created their famous characters is absolutely fascinating. They would spend hours and hours just talking to each other in different voices and accents. Cheech discovered he had an amazing talent for doing Chicano accents and characters, while Tommy was naturally great at playing the slow, spaced-out guy. But they didn't just wing it. They studied real people. They would go to different neighborhoods and listen to how people talked, then practice those voices until they were perfect. Their breakthrough came with their first album, Cheech and Chong, released in 1971. But making that album was way harder than anyone realizes. They were broke and had to record it in a tiny studio that they could barely afford. They did multiple takes of every sketch, sometimes staying in the studio for 12 hours straight. Tommy would get so tired that he'd fall asleep between recordings, and Cheech would have to wake him up to do the next bit. Despite all the struggles, that album went gold and launched their incredible career. Here's something that will blow your mind about their success. Up in Smoke, their first movie, was made with almost no money. The total budget was less than $2 million, which is nothing compared to modern movies. They had to be incredibly creative with everything. Some of the funniest scenes in the movie happened because they couldn't afford expensive equipment or locations. That famous scene where they're smoking the car, they shot it in Tommy's actual car because they couldn't afford to rent a fancy one. Sometimes having less money forces you to be more creative. And that's exactly what happened with this movie. The movie became a huge hit, making over $100 million worldwide. Suddenly, these two guys who had been struggling to pay rent were millionaire movie stars. But success came with problems they never expected. People started expecting them to be high all the time in real life. Fans would come up to them on the street and be disappointed when they were acting normal. It became hard for them to separate their comedy characters from their real personalities. But here's where things get really interesting about Cheech. While everyone was focused on the stoner comedy, he was secretly developing other talents. He was writing scripts, studying directing, and learning everything he could about making movies. He had bigger dreams than just being known as a stoner comedian. He wanted to tell stories about Mexican-American culture and bring Latino voices to mainstream entertainment. Even while he was making people laugh with silly jokes, he was planning something much more important. Tommy, on the other hand, was dealing with his own challenges. The character he played was so popular that people assumed that's who he really was all the time. But in real life, Tommy was actually a smart businessman who understood the entertainment industry really well. He was making investment decisions and managing money, while people thought he was just a carefree hippie. He learned to keep his business side private, while giving people the character they wanted to see. Their creative process was amazing to watch. They would improvise for hours, recording everything, then listen back and pick out the funniest parts. Some of their most famous sketches came from conversations they had while just hanging out. The "Dave's not here" bit, which became one of their most popular routines, started as a real conversation they had when someone knocked on Tommy's door at the wrong time. They turned everyday situations into comedy gold. As the years went on, both Cheech and Tommy started wanting different things from their careers. Cheech was interested in more mainstream comedy and acting roles. He wanted to show his range and prove he could do more than just stoner characters. Tommy was more interested in staying true to the counterculture comedy that made them famous. These different goals started creating tension between them. The tension reached a breaking point in the 1980s. They were both successful, but they weren't happy working together anymore. Cheech felt like he was being held back from exploring other types of comedy and acting. Tommy felt like Cheech was abandoning the style that made them famous. Neither one was wrong, but they wanted different things, and sometimes that means partnerships have to end. When they decided to go their separate ways in 1985, it shocked their fans. People couldn't believe that this perfect comedy team was breaking up, but both of them knew it was the right decision. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your career and your friendship is to give each other space to grow. After the split, both of them proved they were more talented than anyone realized. Cheech went on to become a serious actor and director. He starred in Born in East L.A., which he also wrote and directed. This movie was completely different from his Cheech and Chong work. It was a smart comedy about immigration and Mexican-American identity. He showed the world that he was much more than just a stoner comedian. Cheech also became a television star, appearing in shows like Lost and Machete. He proved he could do drama, action, and different types of comedy. He became a respected actor in Hollywood, while also staying connected to his Mexican-American roots. He started collecting Chicano art and became an expert on Latino culture in America. The guy who made people laugh with silly voices became a serious cultural figure. Tommy also surprised everyone with what he did after the breakup. He kept performing comedy, but he also became a businessman and an activist. He opened cannabis dispensaries and became a spokesman for marijuana legalization. He turned his comedy persona into a real business, showing that he understood marketing and entrepreneurship better than anyone realized. But Tommy's story took a dramatic turn in 2003 when he was arrested for selling drug paraphernalia through his online business. He ended up spending 9 months in federal prison. For most people, this would have been the end of their career. But Tommy was different. He used his time in prison to write a book and come up with new comedy material. He turned one of the worst experiences of his life into something positive. When Tommy got out of prison, he was more popular than ever. People respected him for taking responsibility for his actions and using the experience to grow as a person. He wrote several books about his experiences and continued performing comedy. He showed that even when life knocks you down, you can get back up stronger than before. Meanwhile, Cheech was building an incredible career in television and movies. He became a regular on the TV show Cheech Marin's Born in East L.A. and appeared in dozens of films. He also became a writer and producer, creating content that brought Latino stories to mainstream audiences. He was doing exactly what he had dreamed of during his Cheech and Chong days, using entertainment to represent his culture with dignity and humor. But here's the amazing part of their story. Even though they had gone their separate ways and built successful individual careers, they never stopped respecting each other. They would occasionally appear together at events, and fans could see that their friendship was still there, even if their professional partnership had ended. In the 2000s, something magical happened. Both Cheech and Tommy started getting nostalgic for their old partnership. They realized that what they had created together was special and worth celebrating. They began doing reunion tours, performing their classic sketches for new generations of fans. These shows were incredibly popular because people could see that their chemistry was still amazing after all those years apart. The reunion tours were emotional for both of them. They got to experience again why they had worked so well together in the first place. They were older and wiser, and they could appreciate their partnership in a way they couldn't when they were younger. They realized that their different perspectives had actually made their comedy better, not worse. What makes their story even more incredible is how their comedy has influenced so many other performers. Comedians today still study Cheech and Chong's timing and character work. Their albums are considered classics that change what comedy could be. They prove that you could be silly and smart at the same time, and that comedy could tackle social issues while still making people laugh. Their influence goes way beyond just comedy. They were talking about drug policy, immigration, and cultural differences decades before these became mainstream political topics. They use humor to make people think about serious issues, which is one of the hardest things to do in entertainment. They were social commentators disguised as silly comedians. Looking at their careers today, it's clear that both Cheech and Tommy made the right decisions for themselves. Cheech became the serious actor and cultural figure he always wanted to be. Tommy stayed true to his counterculture roots, while also becoming a successful businessman. They both found ways to be authentic to themselves while still entertaining people. Their story teaches us so many important lessons. It shows us that partnerships can be amazing, but people can grow in different directions, and that's okay. It shows us that what looks like failure, like getting kicked out of a band or not fitting in with serious students, might actually be preparing you for something better. It shows us that you can be funny and smart, silly and serious, all at the same time. But maybe the most important lesson from Cheech and Chong is that being true to yourself is more important than being what other people expect you to be. Cheech could have stayed doing stoner comedy his whole career, but he followed his dreams of doing more serious work. Tommy could have tried to become more mainstream, but he stayed true to his counterculture values. Both of them were happier because they were honest about who they really were. Their legacy is incredible when you think about it. They created characters and sketches that people still quote 50 years later. They made movies that are still funny to new audiences. They influenced countless comedians and actors. They opened doors for Latino performers in Hollywood. They started conversations about drug policy and social issues that are still relevant today. And here's something beautiful about their story. They prove that friendship can survive career changes. Even though they stopped working together professionally, they maintained their personal relationship. They showed that you can respect someone's choices even when those choices are different from yours. In a world where business partnerships often end in bitterness, Cheech and Tommy showed a different way. Today, both of them continue to work and create. Cheech is still acting and promoting Latino culture through his art collection and cultural work. Tommy is still performing and advocating for marijuana legalization. They're both in their 70s and still passionate about their work. They prove that creativity doesn't have an age limit. Their story reminds us that life is full of surprises. The serious student became a comedy legend. The wild musician found success in comedy instead of music. The stoner characters were created by people who were much more complex and intelligent than anyone realized. The partnership that seemed perfect actually needed to end for both people to reach their full potential. So the next time you watch Up in Smoke or hear one of their classic comedy sketches, remember that you're not just watching two funny guys. You're watching two incredibly talented people who took risks, followed their dreams, and changed comedy forever. You're watching a story about friendship, creativity, success, failure, and finding your own path in life. Cheech and Chong didn't just make people laugh. They made people think. They didn't just create characters. They created a comedy revolution. They didn't just tell jokes. They told stories about culture, society, and what it means to be different in America. And they did it all while making it look easy and fun. That's the real magic of Cheech and Chong. They took serious topics and made them accessible through humor. They took their own struggles and turned them into entertainment that helped other people feel less alone. They proved that comedy can be a powerful tool for bringing people together and making the world a little bit better. Their story is far from over. Even though they're both older now, they continue to influence new generations of comedians and actors. Their work remains relevant because good comedy is timeless. The characters they created and the issues they talked about are still important today. So, what can we learn from the incredible journey of Cheech and Chong? We can learn that it's okay to change directions in life. We can learn that partnerships can be beautiful even when they don't last forever. We can learn that being authentic is more valuable than being what people expect. And we can learn that laughter really is one of the most powerful forces in the world. The next time someone tells you that comedy isn't important or that funny people aren't serious, tell them about Cheech and Chong. Tell them about how two guys from completely different backgrounds came together and created something that made millions of people happy. Tell them about how comedy can change minds, open doors, and bring people together. And remember, the most amazing thing about Cheech and Chong isn't just what they accomplished together. It's what they continue to accomplish apart. Their story proves that there's no single path to success, no one way to be creative, and no limit to what you can achieve if you're willing to be true to yourself. If this incredible story of comedy, friendship, and following your dreams has amazed you as much as it has amazed me, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button to show your appreciation for these comedy legends. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this inspiring story of two people who changed entertainment forever. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell, because we have so many more incredible stories of amazing people who changed the world in ways you never imagined. Trust me, you don't want to miss what we have coming next. Until then, keep laughing, keep dreaming, and remember that your own incredible story is just waiting to be written.